All right, shalom. Yahweh Bashem Yahushua broke a thumb to the brothers, Yahweh the sisters. Today is Tuesday, Brotherhood class. So we already know what that is, right? We're going to be hitting stories and scriptures that have to deal with brotherhood and sisterhood and how it can help this nation, right? I'm Officer Shargapan of the ISUPK, started out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under commanding General Yahanna, right? And today, like we do every single day, our goal is to wake up so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. So-called, how do you say in Spanish? Morenos, Indio nativos, y Latinos, right? That we are the true God, that we are the true children of God. We are the true children of Israel, right? So today what we're going to do is we're going to go into courage and suffering and relate it all to brotherhood and sisterhood. Because in order to spread this brotherhood, we need courage. In order to spread this sisterhood, we need courage. We need courage to go up against everything that is pitted against us to destroy us, to set us back, to keep us down. We need courage to rise above the societal norms that we've been forced and pressured to live under, right? We need to know that in order for brotherhood and sisterhood to thrive and prosper, that we need to suffer. We need to show that we're willing to die to keep God's commandments and his statutes, right, and his laws. We need to be able to suffer to make sure that this truth doesn't die. We need to be able to suffer to prove to the Lord that we are a nation of people that deserve to be saved once again. We need to be able to we need to be willing to have courage to suffer in order for God to send back our King Jesus Christ, right? So first I want to start off with courage. And we're going to go into the book of 1 Samuel chapter 17, right? That's what I told you, right? The book of 1 Samuel chapter 17. Now we're about to go into the story of David and Goliath, right? Everyone knows that story. But more importantly, people outside this truth may not understand the courage that David had to show. The courage that David had to exemplify to keep that brotherhood together. Because the armies of Israel were scared of Goliath. Were scared of the Philistines. When they should have courage to know that the Lord was on their side. They should have had courage to know that they could destroy this heathen nation because the Lord is with them. Their brotherhood was a little shaky at that time, running away from the armies of Philistine, being scared of Goliath. You can't be scared in this brotherhood. You can't have fear of your enemy in this brotherhood, because that's what destroys brotherhood. That's what weakens brotherhood. You lacking the faith in the Lord to protect you will cause you to lack courage and destroy this brotherhood. And here in the ISUPK, we don't want no cowards in our camp. We don't want cowards in our camp that are going to let their colors fly. That's going to wave that white flag in the air and give up and surrender. In order for this brotherhood to thrive and to push this truth, we need brothers that are courageous and are ready to die, ready to suffer to keep this brotherhood, to keep this truth, to spread this knowledge. Let's begin. Verse 1.
Book of 1 Samuel, chapter 17, verse 1. Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle, and were gathered together at Shokar, which belongeth to Judah, and pitched between Shokar and Azekah, and Ephes Dammim.
So here we're just going over the general location of where everything is taking place at this moment, or is about to take place. All right, keep going.
Verse 2. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Elah, and set the battle in array against the Philistines.
So we're about to go to war. King Saul and his army about to go to war with the Philistines. Keep going.
Verse 3. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side. and there was a valley between them. Verse 4. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span.
And here we're starting to talk about Goliath, the champion of these disgusting Africans, the Philistines, right? We're gonna see what Goliath looked like. You know, we're gonna learn about his stature, his prominence in this Philistine army. Keep going.
Verse 5. And he had a helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. Verse 6. And he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. Verse 7. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him.
So Goliath was a big man, extremely strong and powerful. The weight of his armor should let you know how strong he was in order to be able to move and be a successful warrior, right? He was a big man, a big heathen, very strong, was raised in war, right? Keep going.
Verse 8. And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, Why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am not I a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me.
Now Goliath, this disgusting African, is taunting, mocking the army of Israel, trying to get one of them to come down to fight him, to challenge him, because these disgusting heathens were looking down upon us, thinking that we were weak men, that we were full of fear, that we were easily to be defeated and destroyed and captured and brought into captivity. Keep going.
Verse 9. If he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be our servants and serve us.
And here was the deal. Goliath said, listen, you bring out your champion to fight me. If he slays me, then all of our Philistines will be your servants, will be servants to Israel. But if I slay your champion, then all of you Israelites are going to be servants to us Philistines. This was the deal he put on the table. This is what he was taunting us Israelites. Keep going.
Verse 10. And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together.
And he's just continuing to taunt us. Keep going.
Verse 11. When Saul and all Israel heard those words of the Philistines, they were dismayed.
They were what?
Dismayed.
They were what?
Dismayed.
They lacked courage. They feared Goliath. They feared the armies of the Philistine. When we had God on our side. You can't fear your enemy when God is on your side. You need to be fearless and courageous, because the one and true power, the living God of Israel, of this entire existence of what we think of reality, that God, that deity, that being, that supreme power, whatever you want to refer to the Most High as, he's with us. With him on our side, we can destroy and accomplish anything. We can overcome anything. Keep going.
And greatly afraid.
And what?
And greatly afraid.
And we were afraid of this disgusting African. We were afraid of this African army, when we should never have had any fear. We should have been filled with courage and strength, knowing that the Lord is on our side, knowing that we can defeat these men. Whether they had 60 million soldiers on their side, we would destroy all of them, because the Lord is supposed to be with us. But our men on this day, we forgot that. We forgot that our power comes from the Lord. We forgot that our strength comes from the Lord. Here in 2021, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans have forgotten that their strength is supposed to come from the Lord, that our courage comes from the Lord. And that's because we don't follow the laws, statutes, and commandments of God anymore. And this is the job, the mission of the ISUPK, to bring back these laws, statutes, and commandments amongst blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Because we need these laws to survive, to live. We need these laws, and we need to obey these laws so that way the Most High can be with us once again. So we can be filled with courage to overcome drug addiction. So we can be filled with courage to overcome gang violence, right? So we can be filled with courage to know that we don't have to be scared of our brothers, of our sisters, that we can live peaceably, in harmony, in unity with one another, instead of being angry at the next black man or the Hispanic man, instead of taking advantage of the next black or Hispanic or Native American woman. We need courage to grow this brotherhood. We need courage to keep this brotherhood. Keep going.
Verse 12. Now David was the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse. And he had 8 sons. And the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. Verse 13. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab, the firstborn, and next unto him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. Verse 14. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. Verse 15. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. Verse 16. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening and presented himself 40 days.
So here David jumps on the scene. He knows a little bit about what's going on with the armies and the battle that's supposed to be happening with the Philistines. But he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, feeding his father's sheep, feeding his flock, right? Keep going.
Verse 17. And Jesse said unto David his son, take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren. Verse 18. And carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their 1,000, and look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge.
And so David was given an order by his father Jesse to go take some food and some provisions to his brothers and to the captains of the army, and find out what's going on. Get a little inside scoop of what's happening. Keep going.
Verse 19. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines.
And here we go. The war's on and popping. Israel is fighting the Philistines right there in the valley. Keep going.
Verse 20. And David rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with a keeper, and took and went, as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the trench, as the host was going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle.
Now David just arrived as this particular group of men were about to ride out into battle. Keep going.
Verse 21. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army.
And everything was set up. Israel against Philistine. Keep going.
Verse 22. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren.
And when he left the carriage, he said, listen, you watch this carriage, I'll be right back. He ran to go see his brothers, saluted them. That's what we say today, right? But he saluted his brothers. Keep going.
Verse 23. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words, and David heard them.
Now Goliath came up, rose up, and started speaking that garbage that he was saying the last time, taunting Israel. Is there no champion among you to face me? Are you all scared of me? David heard these words. Keep going.
Verse 24. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him.
They did what?
fled from him.
They lacked courage. They lacked faith in the Lord that the Lord will provide a way for them to defeat these heathens, these Africans, these disgusting animals. And they fled from Goliath because they had no courage. They had no courage that they could rely on each other. You know, when you go into war, you need to know that the man standing beside you, in front of you, behind you, that they're all willing to die for you. You're all willing to die for each other. Here in the ISUPK, we have courage and we're willing to die for each other. We're willing to die for this truth. We're willing to die so that way this brotherhood can prosper and grow. You need to have courage in this brotherhood. You need to have courage in this sisterhood. Keep going.
And were sore afraid.
They were all afraid. Keep going.
Verse 25. And the men of Israel said, have ye seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel.
Now the men start talking. Listen, if any Israelite is brave enough, has enough courage, is not scared of this disgusting heathen, listen, if you're able to destroy and slay this Goliath, King Saul said he's going to give you great riches. He'll even give you his daughter, the king's daughter, a princess for you to marry. And he'll make your father's house free in Israel. Your father won't have to worry about paying taxes to the king anymore. Your father's house will be protected and given honor. Keep going.
Verse 26. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, what shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel?
Yeah. What David wants to know, wait, what? What's going to happen to the man that kills this heathen? What will happen to the man that takes away this reproach from Israel? Because David is like, what the hell is going on? Why are you all scared of this disgusting heathen? Surely there's a reproach on Israel. How can we walk with the Lord and be scared of our enemies? Surely we will lose because all the army is scared. All the army is lacking courage. All the army has lost, are proving that they have no faith in their power, in their God. Keep going.
For who is this uncircumcised Philistine?
What?
For who is this uncircumcised Philistine?
Exactly. Who is this heathen? Who is this uncircumcised, disgusting, unclean, abominable, homosexual, cannibal? Who is this African smelling like cow piss? Who is he? He's a goddamn nobody. This uncircumcised man, this man that can't even compare to me, to you, to us. He's a nobody, and y'all scared of him? Who is this clown, this buster, this joker? Who is this guy? I'm not scared of him. He's no one to be feared. He's no one that should strike fear in your heart. You should all have courage because the Lord is with you. Who is this uncircumcised heathen? Keep going.
That he should defy the armies of the living God.
Who is he that he thinks he has the power to stand up to the army of God? Don't you know we are the army of God? And how dare he think that he has the power to stand before God, to destroy what God has empowered? He's less than a man. And he think he can defeat and conquer the army of God? Keep going.
Verse 27. And the people answered him after this manner, saying, so shall it be done to the man that killeth him.
And they told him, this is what's going to happen. Whatever man can kill Goliath, this, and a third, and that. This is what you're going to get. You're going to be extremely rich. You're going to marry the king's daughter, a princess. Your father's home is going to be free. Keep going.
Verse 28. And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men. And Eliab's anger was kindled against David.
And Eliab's anger was kindled against David. He was a little jealous. Right? He was a little jealous. His young brother is all up in the mix, trying to find out what's going on. Maybe talking a little, maybe shit talking a little bit. Like I'm here on the battlefield, and you're basically, and I'm hearing you say that you think I'm scared, that you think that we're scared of this Goliath, which they are. So like any big brother, you ain't gonna let your little brother punk you. Keep going.
And he said, why camest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness?
He wants to know what you're doing here. If you're here, who's taking care of the sheep? Don't you got something better else to do than to be down here? We're about to go to war. Keep going.
I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart.
And he's trying to say, I know you, David. I know how you think. I know how you act. You're very prideful. Right? Keep going.
For thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle.
You just came here so you can see the battle. You want to slack on your chores. You want to slack on the things you want to be doing. You're just here to see what's going on, being all nosy. Keep going.
Verse 29. And David said, what have I now done? Is there not a cause?
And David's like, what are you talking about? What did I do? Is there a cause? Is there a reason why you're so upset with me? First of all, I'm here because Dad sent me here to come give you guys food. Second of all, Dad wanted me to come to get a report to see how you doing, to see what's going on. Keep going.
Verse 30. And he turned from him toward another and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner.
So it was confirmed to David that if any man defeats this Philistine, Goliath, you'll be given riches. You'll marry a princess, right? Keep going.
Verse 31. And when the words were heard, which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him.
Right? And they went to go get Saul. Keep going.
Verse 32. And David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with the Philistine.
David, a boy, a young man, had more courage than every man in that army because he had faith in the Lord. He had unlimited courage because he knew that he stood with the Lord. He told King Saul, listen, don't sweat it. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of this. I'm going to go fight this Philistine, this disgusting African. I'm going to hold us down. I got this. I'm not about to let this disgusting African pump the army of God. Keep going.
Verse 33. And Saul said to David, thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. And
King Saul is like, you must be kidding. This must be a joke. You're just a teenager. Goliath, since he was younger than you, he's been raised up in war. This is a killer. This is Philistine's strongest warrior, their champion. And you're just a kid. You're just a teenager. What wars have you been a part of? What training have you had? Keep going.
Verse 34. And David said unto Saul, thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock.
And David's about to tell King Saul, listen, I watch over and protect my father's sheep. And this one time there was a lion and a bear that took one of my sheep, one of my father's sheep. Keep going.
Verse 35. And I went out after him.
And I chased him down. I hunted this lion. I hunted this bear down to get back my father's lamb, to get back my sheep. Keep going.
And smote him.
And what?
And smote him.
And I killed both that lion and that bear. I killed them. This young boy that's standing in front of you, I killed a lion. I killed a bear. Two of the most fierce and brutal and strong beasts on earth. Yeah, that's me. This young man right here in front of you. I killed them. Keep going.
And delivered it out of his mouth.
And I took that lamb right out the mouth of these beasts. I saved my lamb. Keep going.
And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and smote him and slew him.
And listen, and when that lion came charging at me, jumped on me, trying to kill me, bite me, and claw me to death, you know what I did, King Saul? I grabbed him by his beard and I killed him. I slew him. He didn't kill me, I killed him. He didn't overcome me, I overcame him. He didn't destroy me, I destroyed that lion. I killed that lion. Keep going.
Verse 36. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear.
I killed both that lion and the bear. Me. A young boy, a teenager. What man here have you known that has killed a lion and a bear at a young age? Me. I did that. I had the courage to go do that. Because the Lord is with Israel. The Lord is with my father. The Lord is with me. I believed in the Lord, and I knew that as long as I had courage, I can defeat these monsters, these beasts, these animals, because I obey the Lord. I fear only the Lord. I put my trust only in the Lord. Keep going.
And this uncircumcised
Philistine, this disgusting heathen, this funky, always smelling like piss and sweat African, this uncircumcised Philistine, keep going,
shall be as one of them.
I'm going to treat him like that lion and bear, and I'm going to kill him. Yeah, he's taller than me, just like the lion and bear. Yeah, he's physically stronger than me, like that lion and bear. Yeah, he's more ferocious looking than me, just like that lion and bear. But you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do him just like I did those two beasts. I'm gonna slay them. I'm gonna kill them. Just like I killed that lion and bear, I'm going to kill this disgusting African who everyone is scared of, Goliath. Who the hell is Goliath to me? He's just another beast. He's just another animal. It's just another lion that needs to be put to death for thinking he can steal from the Lord. It's just another bear that needs to be slain for thinking that he can stand up to the army of God. And I'm gonna do it. Keep going.
Seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. Verse 37. David said, moreover, the Most High that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear.
And he said, just like I was saved and not killed by the lion, just like I was saved and not killed by the bear, and I instead killed both of them, the Lord did that. The Lord allowed me to kill that lion. The Lord allowed me to kill that bear because I had courage. I had courage and the Lord was with me. I had courage that as long as I walk after the law, statutes, and commandments of God, God will always be by me and protect me. So I knew I was going to kill that lion. I knew I was going to kill that bear. Keep going.
He will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine.
And just like I knew that the Lord saved me from that lion and bear, the Lord is going to save me from this disgusting African. The Lord is going to allow me to kill this African. Keep going.
And Saul said unto David, go, and the Most High be with thee.
So King Saul was like, hey, you convinced me. Go ahead and do your thing, go ahead and do your thing, little boy. Go ahead and do your thing, man. Youngin, Lord be with you. Keep going.
Verse 38. And Saul armed David with his armor, and he put an helmet of brass upon his head. Also he armed him with a coat of mail. Verse 39. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it.
Now King Saul had all this armor and weaponry put on to David to wear to go fight this heathen. And and David's like, I can't wear this. I can't wear this armor, this shield, this sword, this helmet. I haven't proved myself worthy. I haven't been trained in these things. Keep going.
And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him.
And so David took everything off. He took the helmet, the chest plate, the armbands, the shin guards, took off the sword, right? And he was just in his regular attire. Keep going.
Verse 40. And he took his staff in his hand and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook.
So with a staff in his hand, he took up 5 smooth stones out the brook. Keep going.
And put them in a shepherd's bag, which he had, even in a scrip. And his sling was in his hand. And he drew near to the Philistine.
So all David had was his staff, 5 smooth stones that he found in the brook, and his sling. That he's going to put that stone in, sling it, and release that smooth stone to slay Goliath with. Keep going.
Verse 41. And the Philistine came on and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went before him.
And so David and this Philistine were coming closer together, ready to go to war, champion against champion. Keep going.
Verse 42. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy and of a fair countenance.
And when Goliath saw King David, when Goliath saw David, he's like, what is this? You're a child. You're a teenager. You're just a boy. You're still wet behind the ears. You're a pretty boy. You don't even look like you've ever seen a battle. And they expect me to fight you? Keep going.
Verse 43. And the Philistine said unto David, Am I a dog, that thou comest to me with? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. Verse 44.
And Goliath was like, am I a dog? Approach me with a staff? You think you're going to beat me like you would beat a dog with a staff? Listen, I am Goliath. I've murdered people on battlefields. I'm a champion of Philistine. And you think you're going to treat me like a dog? Hit me with a stick? A staff? You know what I would do to you, boy? Keep going.
Verse 44. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air, and to the beasts of the field.
And Goliath told David, come here, little boy, because I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to feed your flesh to the birds. I'm going to feed you. When I slay you, I'm going to chop you up and feed you to the animals, thinking that you can destroy and come up against me. Keep going.
Verse 45. Then said David to the Philistine, Thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield.
And David, he's like, listen, you ugly giant African, I can smell you from over here. You come with me with a shield. You got armor on. You got a spear with you. You even got some little person holding and carrying your shield for you. Keep going.
But I come to thee in the name of the Most High of hosts.
But I come in the name of the Lord. Keep going.
The God of the armies of Israel.
I come here in the name of the true living power of Israel. Keep going.
Whom thou hast defied.
And you have disrespected my God. You have disrespected the army of God. And now, here I am, and I'm going to kill you. Keep going.
Verse 46. This day will the Most High deliver thee into mine hand.
And today, the Lord is going to put your head in my hands. And I'm going to kill you. because the Lord is going to allow me to kill you. Because you had the audacity to stand up before God, to stand against the army of God. I fear you. I only fear the Lord. And because of that, I have the courage to know that I'm going to defeat you because the Lord is with me. Keep going.
And I will smite thee.
Now what?
And I will smite thee.
And I'm going to kill you. Keep going.
And take thine head from thee.
And I'm going to cut your head clean off and remove your head from your shoulders. Keep going.
And I will give the carcasses of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air.
And all you Philistines that will be killed are going to feed these animals. They're going to feed off your carcasses, your dead bodies. Keep going.
And to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel.
And after I remove your head from your neck, and after all these Philistines get put to death, the entire earth will know that there is a God on earth. There's only one God that rules earth. And he chooses the people of Israel and not you. And because he chooses Israel, you are going to die today. You all will fear us as we stand with the Lord. Keep going.
Verse 47. And all this assembly shall know that the Most High saveth not with sword and spear.
And everyone on earth, Israel and the Philistine army, everyone is going to see that you don't need a sword to win battles. You don't need weapons to win battles. You just need faith in the Lord to win a battle. You just need courage to know that the Lord is with you and you will overcome any obstacle. This brotherhood in the ISUPK, we're filled with courage because we know the Lord is with us. We know that we can go down to Acuna, Mexico, cartel territory, travel back and forth to feed Mexican and Haitian people and not be touched because we fear the Lord. We have courage that the Lord will protect us and we do the work of the Lord. Keep going.
For the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands.
Because victory belongs to the Lord. And because we have faith in the Lord, because we fear only the Lord, because we're filled with courage knowing that the Lord is with us, we're always going to win. And we will always win as long as we do these things. Keep going.
Verse 48. And it came to pass, when the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hasted and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine.
Now both David and this disgusting African Goliath are now running towards each other, about to engage in hand-to-hand combat. Right? Keep going.
Verse 49. And David put his hand in his bag and took thence a stone and slang it and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead and he fell upon his face.
And David took his sling, put a smooth stone in it, swung it, and hit Goliath straight in the forehead and killed him with it. This giant, strong, ferocious-looking murderer and champion of the army of Philistine was killed by a child, a young boy, a teenager, with only a sling and a rock. And 100% faith in the Lord, 100% trust in the Lord, 100% filled with courage, knowing that he was doing the Lord's work. And that child, that teenager, destroyed that giant, destroyed that beast, just like he killed that lion and that bear, doing the work of the Lord, fearing only the Lord. Keep going.
To the earth. 50. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine, and slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Verse 51. Therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine and
What?
and took his sword.
So David walked up to Goliath, stood on top of him, and took Goliath's own sword. That giant sword that giant African. Keep going.
And drew it out of the sheath thereof, and slew him.
And what?
And slew him.
And he killed. Chopped off his head. Keep going.
And cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled.
And he cut his head off, just like he said he was going to do. And he showed everyone that the Philistine champion was dead. Keep going.
Verse 52. And the men of Israel and of Judah arose and shouted and pursued the Philistines until thou come to the valley and to the gates of Ekron.
And the armies of Israel, now filled with courage once again, now knowing that they can destroy and accomplish anything as long as the Lord is with them, as long as they believe in the Lord, as long as they're feared and trusted in the Lord, they can have the courage to do anything. With Brotherhood, we need courage. With Brotherhood, we need to know that anything is possible as long as we trust in the Lord. We can have the courage to go into cartel territory in Acuna, Mexico. We can have the courage to take a 3 to 5 hour trip to Puerto Rico to raise the Puerto Rican island up. We can have the courage to go to Haiti, send food down to Haiti to feed our people. We can have the courage to go into the most dirtiest and grittiest and grimiest and toughest maximum security prisons to teach our people and be. Because we fear the Lord, because we that the Lord is with us and we can do anything. So we need courage in order for this brotherhood to succeed. We need courage in order for this sisterhood to succeed. And it starts with trusting in the Lord. It starts with fearing the Most High God. It starts while knowing that as long as He's with us, as long as we're obeying these laws, statutes, and commandments, the Lord will always be with Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. And we can accomplish anything. And we can overcome anything. We can destroy our enemies. We can get drugs out of our neighborhoods and communities. We can take our brothers and sisters out of the prison system. We can defeat drug addiction and gang violence. We can fend for ourselves and protect ourselves. We can feed ourselves. We can be self-reliant and not need the assistance of the oppressor, of the white man, of the African man, of the Arabs. We can have our own stores and businesses and schools, our own military. We can have all these things. Now let's get to the suffering part. Because in order to have brotherhood, you need to be willing to suffer for it. In order for the Lord to send back our King Christ, we need to be able to prove that we're willing to suffer for it. To prove our love to the Most High God, we need to be willing to suffer for it. Before we go to 2 Maccabees, let me get that scripture. It's in the Apocrypha, I believe, where it says, when thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thyself for temptation. I think let me find it for you, all right? I got it for you right now. It's in Ecclesiasticus chapter 2, verse 1. All right? But let's get everyone a few moments to get there. Ecclesiasticus chapter 2, verse 1. Right, check the chat. Let me know if there's any questions or anything on the chat, any comments. No questions on Facebook?
La,
On YouTube either?
la,
Any comments, anything like that?
la.
All right, let's get it. Ecclesiasticus chapter 2, verse 1.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 2, verse 1. My son, if thou come to serve the Lord.
Listen, all you blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, when you decide to come and serve your God, when you make that decision to change your life and serve the Lord, to obey his laws, statutes, and commandments, when you make that decision, keep going.
Prepare thy soul for
what?
Prepare thy soul.
You need to prepare yourself. Prepare your soul. Prepare your mind. Get prepared because what?
For temptation.
For temptation. Because when you finally, after living a life of sin and using drugs and being a whore and being a homosexual, using drugs, being in gangs, murdering people, robbing people, committing adultery, when you live the life of all that disgustingness and you finally decide to change your life to serve God, be prepared for temptation. Be prepared to fight the lust of your flesh. Be prepared to fight that desire to smoke that blunt again. Be prepared to fight that desire to have sex with whores, to sleep with that man's wife, to be a whore and sleep with multiple men for money. Be prepared to fight that feeling, that urge, that need, that strong desire. You need to prepare yourself for all these temptations because your flesh doesn't want you to serve God. It doesn't want you to do what you're supposed to do. It does not want you to obey God's laws, statutes, and commandments. And God doesn't want no weaklings. God wants people who are willing to put their life at stake to serve him, to fight for him, to never compromise. And here in the ISUPK, we raise men and women to never compromise. We give them everything they need to never compromise. Now they just need to accept that task. They need to accept that mission. We need to accept that we need to be willing to give our lives for the Lord. Because when you give your life for your brother, that's one of the greatest things you can do. To give your life up for your brother, for your sister. You know what that does? That inspires brotherhood. That inspires and inflames and enrages the spirit of brotherhood and sisterhood. And that is exactly what we have here in the ISUPK. That is exactly what blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans all across this globe need. They need to know, just like Christ was willing to die for his people, there are black, Hispanic, and Native American people willing to die for us, just like Christ did, just to show that there's people who love them, who care for them, and most importantly, who are willing to serve the Lord to protect our people. Let's go to Second Maccabees chapter 7.
Book of Second Maccabees, chapter 7, verse 1. And it came to pass also that seven brothers,
7 sons, keep going,
with their mother,
and their mother, a family, a mother and her 7 children, grown men, of course, a mother and the children she raised to be men, 7 brothers, keep going,
were taken and compelled by the king against the law to taste swine's flesh.
And they were all taken and were trying to be forced to eat pork, to eat swine. They were trying to be forced to eat something the Lord said not to eat. They were trying to be forced to commit a sin. against God. Keep going.
And were tormented with scourges and whips.
And they were tortured. Tortured like how you see in the movie Saw. Tortured like how you see in the movies. Being whipped, being stabbed with metal objects. They were tortured to death, all because they did not want to commit a sin against God. They were willing to endure unimaginable suffering to serve God. They were willing to endure unimaginable pain and torture and torment for God. They were willing to die in the most horrible way than compromise their obedience to God. They were willing to suffer for God. And because of their suffering for God, we have one of the greatest examples of brotherhood and sisterhood. We have one of the greatest examples that we all can learn from, be inspired by, that we too have the power and the capabilities to die for God, that we should rather die and suffer than disobey the Lord, than break his laws. Keep going.
Verse 2. But one of them that spake first said thus, what wouldest thou ask or learn of us? We are ready to die, rather than to transgress the laws of our fathers.
And one of the brothers said, listen, what do you want from us? We're ready to die for God. We're ready to die than disobey God. Here in the ISUPK, we are ready to die to serve the Lord. We would rather die the most painful death than compromise our oath we took to serve the Lord. Keep going.
Verse 3. Then the king, being in a rage, commanded pans and cauldrons to be made hot. Verse 4.
And the king said, I don't believe none of you guys. The king was enraged, fueled with anger and wrath. I'm going to make them disobey God. I'm going to make them obey me. Go get me pans and cauldrons. You ever seen movies where witches have these big pots and they put little children in and they whip up potions? Think of that. They got big pans and cauldrons and put them on top of a fire until they were hot, burning hot, sizzling hot, scalding hot. Keep going.
Verse 4. Which forthwith being heated, he commanded to cut out the tongue of him that spake first.
And the first brother that spoke out, he had his tongue cut out. Keep going.
And to cut off the utmost parts of his body.
And to cut off the utmost parts of his body. That means he cut off his fingers. He cut off his wrists. He cut off his arms at the elbows. Cut off his shoulders while he's alive. Torturing him because he doesn't want to obey the king and eat pork. He'd rather die a horrible death and serve the Lord. Keep going.
The rest of his brethren and his mother looking on.
And while this is all happening to him, his 6 other brothers and his mother are all watching their brother, her son, being chopped up into pieces, all because he would rather die than disobey God. Keep going.
Verse 5. Now when he was thus maimed in all his members.
And after all his members of all his body parts were separated from him. Keep going.
He commanded him, being yet alive, to be brought to the fire.
And he was still alive. After he had his hands removed, his arms chopped off, his legs chopped off, his knees chopped off, he was still alive. And he was commanded to be brought to the fire. He was commanded to be brought to the pans and the cauldron and the pots. Keep going.
And to be fried in the pan.
And what?
be fried in the pan.
And he was placed in that pan to be burned to death, to suffer great pain, being cooked alive, all because he didn't want to sacrifice his obedience to the Lord. Keep going.
And as the vapor of the pan was for a good space dispersed, they exhorted one another with the mother to die manfully.
And as their older brother, as that brother was dying, being cooked alive, the other 6 brothers and the mother had great courage and what's the word I'm looking for? Inspired each other and provided confidence to each other that it is okay if we die today, as long as we die serving the Lord. Let's die not compromising this truth. We all have the power to not suffer. We all have the power to go through any torture and still serve God. Listen, this is only just the body. The suffering that we'll experience will go by like that compared to what the Lord would do if we disobeyed him. Yeah, we could suffer for 30 minutes, get our limbs chopped off, be cooked alive. That suffering is nowhere near comparison to what the Lord can do. There's a scripture that says, actually, let me get it. Let me get it for you. Hold where you are. Give me Matthew chapter 10, verse 28. The book of Matthew chapter 10, verse 28. This is what the 6 brothers and mothers said to each other to inspire confidence, to let them know that, yeah, we're going to die, but let's die with dignity and honor. Let's die knowing that we serve the Lord and we will not compromise. They're just men, but we serve a power greater than men. Read.
The book of Matthew, chapter 10, verse 28. And fear not them which kill the body.
Listen, don't be scared of them. Don't be scared of anybody that's torturing you. Don't fear anybody that's chopping off your limbs. Don't have fear in anyone that's going to cook you alive. Keep going.
But are not able to kill the soul.
Because they don't have the power to kill your soul. They don't have the power to put you into eternal damnation. They don't have the power to make you be reborn time and time again and suffer the most greatest sufferings imaginable. They just have the power to destroy your body, and that's it. Don't worry, you'll regenerate. You'll be reborn again. You'll come back. If the Lord chooses, he'll bring you back in a greater body. Stronger, faster, smarter, wiser. Keep going.
But rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body.
But you know what? You should fear whoever can destroy your body and your soul. Keep going.
In hell.
In hell. You know what's destroying your soul and your body in hell? That's you growing up a crack baby, addicted to crack. Being raised by a single parent mother who's addicted to crack, who sells your body to pimps and drug addicts so she can get money to feed her drug addiction while you're being molested. You know what's hell? Growing up without a father and your mother bringing multiple men over to the home and you being molested by those men, and your mother not believing you that these men that she's bringing over are molesting you because your mother just wants to find love, that's destroying your body and soul in hell. That's an example of what the Lord can do for disobeying him, for compromising the oath you took to serve him, for thinking that there's a greater power that can force you to break his law, statutes, and commandments. Go back to the Apocrypha, Baba Shah. Read it again.
2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 6. The Lord God looketh upon us, and in truth hath comfort in us.
They said, look, the Lord is looking at us right now. The Lord is seeing our conviction. The Lord is seeing that we're willing to die to serve him. And that should bring us comfort. Bring the Lord honor, knowing that we'd rather be chopped up and cooked alive than disobey God. We're willing to suffer for God. We're willing to suffer for this brotherhood. We're willing to suffer to grow this nation. We're willing to suffer, be kicked out of our homes, be laid off, go without eating, lose our wives and our children, have our family turn their backs on us. We're willing to suffer all of this for the Lord. Keep going.
As Moses and his song, which witnessed to their faces, declared, saying, and he shall be comforted in his servants.
What?
And he shall be comforted in his servants.
Listen, the Lord will be comforted knowing that there's people like these 7 brothers and mother that are willing to die for the Lord, that are willing to not compromise for the Lord, that are willing to be tortured and go through unimaginable pain and suffering just so they can prove their devotion to God. Keep going.
Verse 7. So when the first was dead after this manner, they brought the second to make him a mocking stock.
They did what?
They brought the second to make him a mocking stock.
So they brought another brother as an example to try to get him to give up, to try to get him to compromise, to try to use him as an example to get the other 5 brothers and mother to give up their faith in the Lord, to sacrifice their convictions, to disobey God, so that way they won't die such a painful death. Keep going.
And when they had pulled off the skin off his head.
When they what?
When they had pulled off the skin of his head.
As they were filleting his scalp. Keep going.
With the hair, they asked him, wilt thou eat before thou be punished throughout every member of thy body?
And after they're cutting the skin off his head, they asked him, are you willing to eat this pig snout, the pig hoofs? Are you ready to eat this benin? Are you ready to eat this pork shoulder? Are you ready to eat these pork ribs? Before you're put to death? Before you're tortured? Listen, if you just eat one bite, we'll make it quick. You won't suffer. If you just take one bite of this pork flesh, maybe we'll let you live. Keep going.
Verse 8. But he answered in his own language.
And in his own language, in the ancient Hebrew, the language of Israelites, the real Hispanics and Native Americans. Keep going.
And said, La'ah.
He said La'ah, which is no. He will not compromise. Cut some more skin off my head. Stab me with some more spears and scourges. Whip me with spike whips. Cut off all my fingers first, then my wrist, then my elbows, then my shoulders, and then start with my toes and my ankles and my knees and my hips. Cut off every member of my body. And I'm still going to say no. I fear and serve the Lord. Keep going.
Wherefore he also received the next torment in order as the former did.
And he received the same torture, gruesome suffering that his brother did. Keep going.
Verse 9. And when he was at the last gasp, he said, Thou like a fury takest us out of this present life.
And with his last breath before he finally passed over, he said, You're like a storm, like a tornado, like a whirlwind, like a hurricane that just simply removes us from this current state. Keep going.
But the King of the world shall raise us up.
But the King of the world, God, he'll bring us back. He's going to raise us up back from the dead. Keep going.
Who have died for his laws.
And we, who would rather die than break his laws, keep going,
unto everlasting life.
We're going to have everlasting life. Because we rather die than break God's laws, he's going to raise us back up from death. Keep going.
Verse 10. After him was the third made a mocking stock. And when he was required, he put out his tongue. And that right soon, holding forth his hands manfully.
Now the third brother, when it was his turn to make that decision, do you rather die a horrible death or eat this pork and break your God's laws? That brother stuck his tongue out and put his hands out. Listen, I ain't gonna have to say nothing. Cut my tongue out and cut off my arms. Let's get to it. I'd rather die than even answer your dumb question. I'd rather die than even say no to your question of eating pork and live. No, my answer is no. Just kill me, get it over with. I'm not going to eat pork. I'm going to die like my brothers. I'm going to die serving the Lord. Keep going.
Verse 11. And said courageously, These I had from heaven, and for his laws I despised them.
And he looks and tells the king, see these hands? I was given these hands. See this tongue? I was given this tongue. This feet, these clothes, all of this. I received all this from God. Right? And I would rather give all of it up than disobey God. I would rather you take my hands than disobey God. I would rather you cut my tongue out of my mouth than me disobey God. I would rather have you throw me into that pot, that boiling pot, and be cooked alive than disobey God's laws. Keep going.
And from him I hope to receive them again.
And because I believe in the Lord, because I don't break God's laws, I hope I'll get them again. Because I won't compromise. The Lord will give it to me again. Because I stood firm. Keep going.
Verse 12. And so much that the king and they that were with him marveled at the young man's courage.
And what?
Marveled at the young man's courage.
Everyone marveled at his courage. Everyone's in disbelief. The king is like, I can't believe the courage of this man. We just spoke about courage in King David. Courage and suffering go hand in hand, especially when talking about brotherhood, serving the Lord. Read it again.
Verse 12. And so much that the king and they that were with him marveled at the young man's courage.
And heathens were amazed by the courage of this brother, of the brothers before him. Keep going.
For that he nothing regarded the pains.
Because he didn't care about the pain that he is going through. It was nothing to him. Don't fear those that will kill your body, that can make you suffer in this life. It's like a storm passing by. It's like Hurricane Sandy. It comes and then it goes. But fear the Lord, because the Lord will make you die multiple times. Make your soul suffer multiple times. Keep going. Any comments, questions?
Lost.
Okay.
Verse 13. Now when this man was dead also, they tormented and mangled the fourth in like manner.
And he did the same thing to the fourth brother. Keep going.
Verse 14. So when he was ready to die, he said thus, it is good being put to death by men, to look for hope from God, to be raised up again by him. As for thee, thou shalt have no resurrection to life.
And he says to the king and to these other disgusting heathens, listen, this is a good thing for you to put me to death, because God is going to raise me back up, and I'm going to live forever. I'm going to be reborn. So go ahead and kill me. But for you all, once you die, you're going to die and never come back. Once you are put to death, you're never going to come back. That's it. It's lights out for you. Me, I'm dying right now. I'm going to die right now. You're going to put me to death. I accept that. And with that, I'm still not going to compromise. I'm still willing to suffer torture and pain and death, because I know the Lord is going to raise me back up. But you'll never be on earth again. You won't ever exist after today. Once you die, no one's going to remember you. It'll be like you never existed. Keep going.
Verse 15. Afterward they brought the fifth also and mangled him. Verse 16. Then looked he unto the king and said, thou hast power over men. Thou art corruptible. Thou doest, yet think not that our nation is God.
And with his mangled body, he tells the king, this heathen king, listen, you're nobody. Yeah, you have power. Yeah, you have an army. Yeah, you have a strength on this earth. But listen, don't think that our God has abandoned my people. Don't think that my God has abandoned me. Keep going.
Verse 17. But abide a while, and behold his great power. How he will torment thee and thy seed.
But don't worry. I hope you live a little bit longer to see the power of my God as he destroys you and your children and your children's children and your children's children's children. I hope you are alive to see the destruction of your family. And you're going to know that it was because of my God, my power, that has done it. Keep going.
Verse 18. After him also they brought the sixth, who being ready to die said, be not deceived without cause, for we suffer these things for ourselves, having sinned against our God. Therefore marvelous things are done unto us. Verse 19.
Hold on, read that again.
Verse 18. After him also they brought the sixth, who being ready to die said, be not deceived without cause, for we suffer these things for ourselves, having sinned against our God. Therefore marvelous things are done unto us.
Keep going.
Verse 19. But think not thou that takest in hand to strive against God, that thou shalt escape unpunished.
Listen. Maybe we've sinned. Maybe we deserve to be put to death like this. Maybe this is a righteous punishment from God, from us to go through this torture and pain and suffering and death by you. But it's marvelous. It's marvelous because the Lord decides who dies and who lives. It's marvelous because the Lord decides who he's going to raise up again. It's marvelous because you shouldn't think that you are going to get away with it. You will be punished for what you're doing today. Vengeance is the Lord. And because you are doing this horrendous things to the children of God, don't think for 1 minute that you will be unpunished, because it's going to be marvelous. It's going to be marvelous. The things are going to be done to you. Keep going.
Verse 20. But the mother was marvelous above all.
But the mother who gave birth to these 7 kids, who she raised and watched to grow up to men, she was more marvelous than them all. Because this mother saw each one of her 7 children, her 7 babies, who she probably struggled to raise. She saw each one put to death in the most atrocious ways, and saw them stand firm for the Lord. Keep going.
And worthy of honorable memory.
And forever. Since that day until today, right now, we're going over this story. This woman, this mother, will always be remembered for her courage, for her willingness to suffer rather than compromise and break God's laws, statutes, and commandments. Keep going.
For when she saw her 7 sons slain within the space of 1 day.
Because she just saw all her children, all 7 of her sons, killed in the same day, in front of her eyes. Keep going.
She bare it with a good courage.
She what?
She bare it with a good courage.
She took it right on the chin like a champ. She did not budge. She did not get emotional. She did not whimper and cry. She witnessed the death and slaughter and murder of her 7 sons, and it didn't affect her. Keep going.
Because of the hope that she had in the Lord.
Because of the what?
Because of the hope that she had in the Lord.
Because she had hope in the Lord. She had trust in the God. She had faith in our power. Keep going.
Verse 21. She exhorted every one of them in her own language.
She bigged all her sons up. She told them how courageous she thought they were. She told them how much she loved them for not sacrificing, for not compromising for the Lord. She told them how proud she was to be their mother, to know that they were men of God and would rather die and suffer than break the commandments of God. Keep going.
Filled with courage, filled with courageous spirits, and stirring up her womanish thoughts with a manly stomach. She said unto them, verse 22, I cannot came into my womb.
And she told her sons, I don't know how I became pregnant with you. I don't know the magical workings or the scientific terminology. I don't know the process on how the Lord blessed me with all 7 of you as children. Keep going.
For I neither gave you breath nor life.
Because I didn't and I don't, and I did not have the power to create you. I did not have the power to give you life and grow in my womb. I didn't have the power to have you to allow you to take your first breath of air when you were born. Keep going.
Neither was it I that formed the members of every one of you.
I didn't have the power to give you arms and legs and feet and hands and fingers and hairs and ears and eyes and noses and mouths and lips, a heart, a spleen, a kidney, lungs. I didn't have the power to do any of that. Keep going.
Verse 23. But doubtless the creator of the world.
But nonetheless, without any doubt, it was God. Keep going.
Who formed the generation of man.
Who created you. Who created all mankind. Who created the people of Israel. Keep going.
And found out the beginning of all things, will also of his own mercy give you breath.
And this power, this creator, who has done all these wonderful things, he also had enough mercy to give you life. All 7 of you. Keep going.
And life again, as ye now regard not your own selves for his law's sake.
Right? He also had mercy to give you breath, and may he have mercy to give you life again. Because at this moment, you all are ready to die and are being put to death one after the other. All because you don't want to compromise your oath to obey God. Keep going.
Verse 24. Now Antiochus, thinking himself despised and suspecting it to be a reproachful speech, whilst the youngest was yet alive, did not only exhort him by words, but also assured him with oaths that he would.
Now the youngest son, still alive. King Antiochus, thinking that he's going to be given a whole speech and whatnot. He's thinking, listen, he's telling the youngest son, the youngest brother, I swear to you, I will make you a rich man. I will make sure you are the happiest man in my kingdom. Keep going.
If he would turn from the laws of his fathers.
And all you have to do, you won't die today. You won't suffer like your brothers and your mother. You will be rich beyond belief. You'll have food beyond belief. Women, all of this gold, silver, houses, farm, land. And all you have to do is disobey the laws of your fathers. All you have to do is just break the laws of God. You don't got to break all of them. Just this one. Just eat this pork, this little piece of pork. Listen, just take this tiny piece. Just take this tiny piece and just eat it. It's seasoned nicely, It's a little crunchy on the outside, a little moist on the inside. You're going to love it. Just eat this little piece of pork. I promise you're going to love it. All you got to do is just that. Just eat this little bit of pork and I'll make you so rich. You'll have anything you ever wanted. Keep going.
And that also he would take him for his friend and trust him with affairs.
And I will make you my friend. I will give you such great position and honor and authority in my kingdom. You will sit by me and help me rule. But all you got to do is just eat this little pork, this little piece of pernil, this little piece of pork shoulder. Just have one rib, right? Just have a little bit of pulled shredded pork. Just a taste, a spoonful. That's it. And all these great things will happen for you. I will make it possible. Keep going.
Verse 25. But when the young man would in no case hearken unto him, the king called his mother and exhorted her that she would counsel the young man to save his life.
And when the youngest son said no, The king tried to get the mother to talk some sense into her son. Listen, tell your son, just don't die. Just eat the pork and live. Take my offer. Just eat this little bit of pork. Break God's law. He'll be rich. You guys can all go home. You'll have power and influence. Listen, tell your son to do the right thing and just do what I tell him to do. Keep going.
Verse 26. And when he had exhorted her with many words, she promised him that she would counsel her son.
And after speaking to the mother, she told him, okay, I got it. I'll let him know. I'll give him some counsel to make the right decision. Keep going.
Verse 27. But she, bowing herself toward him, laughing the cruel tyrant to scorn.
And as she bowed to this king, she was laughing hysterically. Laughing with scorn, mocking and making fun of this king. Keep going.
Spake in her country language on this manner.
And in her language, the ancient Hebrew, this is what she said.
O my son, have pity upon me, that bare thee 9 months in my womb, and gave thee suck 3 years, and nourished thee, and brought thee up unto this age, and endured the troubles of education.
She turned to her son and said, have pity on me. I carried you in my womb for 9 months. I fed you from milk from my breast for 3 years. I took care of you growing up. I wiped your behind. I taught you how to pee into the toilet bowl. I put you through school and education and made sure you had everything you needed. Keep going.
Verse 28. I beseech thee, my son, look upon the earth.
I beg you, son. Look at the heavens. Look at the earth. Keep going.
And all that is therein.
And look at everything that's here in this life. Land, in the sky. Think about all this. Keep going.
And consider that God made them of things that were not.
And know that God made them like this. God created everything with a blink of an eye, with a snap of a finger. First there was nothing and boom, that's a tree. First there was nothing and boom, that's the ocean. First there was nothing and boom, that's a sheep, a cattle, a mountain. Keep going.
And so was mankind made likewise.
And you, me, your brothers, your father, the nation of Israel, all these people on earth, even this king that's killing us, God made just the same way. Snap of a finger. That easy, that's simple for God. Keep going.
Verse 29. Fear not this tormentor.
What?
Fear not this tormentor.
Don't fear this tormentor. Don't fear this king. Don't fear this murderer, this bully. Don't fear him. Keep going.
But being worthy of thy brethren.
But be worthy to join your brothers. Keep going.
Take thy death.
Die with honor. Be willing to die with honor, just like your brothers. Be willing to suffer, just like your brothers, for God, for this truth. Be willing to suffer unimaginable, horrendous crimes and atrocities, just so you don't break the laws, statutes, and commandments of God. Die with honor. Die with dignity. Die with integrity. Die serving your Lord. Keep going.
That I may receive thee again.
That way, when you die, the Lord can give you back to me. The Lord can put you with a snap of a finger back in my womb. The Lord can put you and your brothers back in my womb, and I can raise you all again. Keep going.
In mercy with thy brethren. Verse 30. While she was yet speaking these words, the young man said, whom wait ye for?
The younger son was like, so what are we waiting for? Keep going.
I will not obey the king's commandment.
I'm not going to eat this pork. Keep going.
But I will obey the commandment of the Lord.
But I'm going to obey God. I'm going to obey the law that says, thou shalt not eat swine's flesh, because it is an abomination to you. I'm going to obey that. Keep going.
That was given unto our fathers by Moses. Verse 31. And thou of all mischief against the Hebrews shall not escape the hands of God.
And you have been the reason why us Israelites have been suffering in Greece and in Rome. And don't worry, Antiochus, whatever your name is, God is going to punish you. Keep going.
2. For we suffer because of our sins.
And you are not making us suffer by cutting off our limbs and chopping out our tongues and sculpting us and putting us in these burning pots and pans and cauldrons. We suffer because of the sins of our people. We suffer because of all the times our people, including us, have broken the laws of God. And it's righteous that we're suffering for that. Because we suffer together as brothers. We suffer together as sisters. We suffer together as a nation. We can overcome this suffering and prove to God that we are willing to die for him and not compromise his laws, statutes, and commandments. Keep going.
Verse 33. And thou, the living Lord, be angry with us a little while for our chastening and correction. Again with his servants.
And although the Lord is angry with us and he punishes us, but he's going to join hand in hand with his people, his nation, his priests and prophets, his children. Keep going.
Verse 34. But thou, O godless man, and of all other most wicked, be not lifted up without a cause, nor puffed up with uncertain hopes, lifting up thy hand against the servants of God.
But you wicked, diabolical, sinful, disgusting man, you're not going to get away with harming the servants of God. You're not going to get away with killing and murdering the children of the Lord. You're not going to get away with it. Keep going.
Verse 35. For thou hast not yet escaped the judgment of Almighty God, who seeth all things.
Because you have not escaped the punishment that is coming to you. Keep going.
Verse 36. For our brethren who now have suffered a short pain are dead under God's covenant of everlasting life.
Because my brothers, you put us to death. We have died. And for that, we are saved with everlasting life for keeping this covenant that our forefathers made with God. Keep going.
But
you,
through the judgment of God,
for the crimes that you are committing and have committed, keep going,
shalt receive just punishment for thy pride.
You shall receive everything that you're worthy of. All the punishments that are coming to you, that will fall upon you, you deserve every single one. And brothers and sisters watching, this should be an example of what real brotherhood and sisterhood is. Because at any moment in time, one brother after the other could have said, to hell with that, I don't want to die. I don't want to suffer like my brother did. I don't want my tongue chopped out. I don't want the skin of my head cut off and removed from my head. I don't want my hands and fingers removed from my body. Listen, these are men. I don't know about you, but I like to have sex. I like to have sex and have pleasure with my women. I don't want my rod removed from my body. These brothers were willing to put their life on the line, and they did put their life on the line, and they proved that they were ready to be murdered and suffer and be tormented, all so they wouldn't compromise the Lord, all so that way they can stand firm and obey the law, statutes, and commandments of God. They were willing to suffer with one another. That's brotherhood. That's sisterhood. Being willing to suffer with one another to serve God. Being willing to not eat so your brother can also not eat. So he doesn't feel bad that you eating and he's eating. Being willing to share your last dollar with your brother. Being willing to suffer with your brothers, with your sisters, while performing the service of the Lord, while being a servant of God, and not once breaking the law, statutes, and commandments of God. This is Tuesday Brotherhood class, coming straight out of New York, Harlem, Yonkers, Long Island, Syracuse, Albany, Brooklyn, the Bronx. Broadcasting to all Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans all around this globe that we are the real children of God. And we must have courage and be willing to suffer for the Lord, for each other. I'm Priest and Officer Shargapan of the ISUPK. Started out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, and we are raising up God's children. We are raising up the kingdom of Christ under Commanding General Yahanna, spreading this truth to make sure that Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans know that there are people that are willing to die for them. And we have the courage to make sure that we can grow as a nation, that we can serve the Lord, and that we can convince God to come back to us, to send our King, Jesus Christ, back to us. And with that, Shalom, Israel.